Welcome everyone to the Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. Yes, take a brief stretch, any direction you need. Loosen up. We've got a wonderful crowd of 20 at home, and we've got a big crowd here tonight. If anyone wants to say hi back and forth to everybody, have our Sangha full together. Welcome everyone. Okay. Well, my name is Denise, and I'm the guest leader this evening, the guest Dharma leader. And I'm trying a little something different. I'm going to try using my laptop tonight. It's taking a quick moment here. It felt like I went really to sleep instead of meditating. Okay. Here I am. So the title of tonight's talk, everybody can still hear me there, right, at home? Thank you. The title of tonight's talk is Choosing a Meditation Anchor to Meet Me Where I'm At. Can anyone relate to the excellent meditation experience during a sit, noting the arising and the passing of any phenomenon that came into your field of awareness, but not holding on to any particular experience, being anchored only in exactly what is true, uninterrupted by meandering thoughts, judgments, or other modes of suffering? I've briefly had these experiences, and they've been game changers for me, because then I knew through direct experience that my ruminating mind and the tension in my body and my fears about what was left on my to-do list did not have to be a 24/7 experience. The freedom from this constriction is what has kept me interested in continuing this insight meditation journey. But most of the times, that's not how it goes in my meditations. And unless we're enlightened, no one stays in this experience. A few weeks ago, our Dharma leader, Debbie George, gave us a wonderful talk on the development of concentration and the jhanas. Our meditation practice helps us to develop that one-pointed focus on the moment. But Debbie reminded us that this is a practice of letting go, of relaxation, not a striving towards any particular state of mind. A recording of her talk is available on the website at imccharlotte.org if you haven't heard it, under the resources tab. She informed us, and tell me if I get this wrong, I was afraid of that all the time. Okay, she informed us that we can experience the depths of concentration through breathing meditation, metta-loving kindness meditation, and open awareness meditation. Tonight I want to talk about these meditations, but also other possible insight meditation anchors and how we might intentionally choose an anchor that is well suited for our current condition. I believe most of us at times when it's very hard to settle in a sit, to check our head full of baggage at the door and turn to take a sole role of impartial observer to what is. How many people have run here tonight shoveling a little something in the mouth to eat on the way after a long day at work, or perhaps trying to meet your family's needs? We may arrive here in a charged state or exhausted. Focus is a tall order under those conditions. And unless someone is highly trained, concentration is not readily available the moment the mallet hits the start bell. For some of us, we can be 29 minutes into the meditation sit and we finally settle. For other ones, and others of us, we are 29 minutes into the sit and we're like, well, she hit the bell already. Before we can choose from the list of possible anchors, we need to check in to see where we're at, beginning with right view. That is the first factor on the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path. Right view is about correct understanding of reality as directly observed. It's not a moral distinction of right or wrong or good or bad. Right view includes the understanding of karma, the law of cause and effect. And karma means action, most specifically volitional action. Understanding that our thoughts, our choices, our words, and our deeds all have an effect. Insight meditation teacher Joseph Goldstein tells us right view sets our direction. Once we know our current condition, we can then turn to setting right intention. Right intention is the second factor on the Noble Eightfold Path. It is void of desire. It is an intention of goodwill and harmlessness, not being tethered to needing things to be different than they are, and intending our actions to be beneficial for ourselves and others, and inviting harmony. So here I'd like to talk a little bit about the work of Deb Dana. Some of you may be familiar with her. She is a psychologist who is an expert on polyvagal theory. I'm going neural on you. She's going to help us to also understand where we are so we can set a wise intention for our sit. So each of us has an autonomic nervous system. That's this nervous system that's in charge of regulating things that we don't think about or necessarily consciously control. And it's made up of two major divisions, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay? The sympathetic nervous system is the one that most of us are all familiar with, that fight, flight, and fright, and freeze. Okay? It's the one that is active to be aware if we need to address our survival or well-being. There's also a fourth piece to that that is more recently described called the fawn state. And that's folks who have learned to be people pleasers for our survival and safety. In the sympathetic state, we might find ourselves panicked, angry, worried, full of rage. I think if we're not in a sympathetic state, I think we know a lot of folks who are. Just takes a drive out there on Park Road. Okay. So then we have the parasympathetic. Parasympathetic state is our rest and digest system. And we have, as part of that system, two vagal nerves that start way up in the brain stem, come down our neck, into the rib cage, behind rib cage, and it feeds the heart, the lungs, the GI system, and the pelvic organs. Vagus means wanderer, and it's a big, long, winding nerve on each side. It's 80% sensory. This means that it observes the environmental conditions in our body, and it feeds that information to the brain for processing, where it then gets its orders on how to manage respiration, pulse, blood pressure, GI function, and more. Now, we're going to get a little deeper into it. So we got the autonomic, we got the sympathetic, we got the parasympathetic. We're going to split the parasympathetic and the vagal nerve a little bit more into a ventral state, meaning in front, and dorsal state, meaning in the back. In a ventral vagal state, we are in a calm, open, compassionate, mindful, and grounded state. It's a settled state. And in the dorsal vagal state, that's more of the freeze state. That's the deer in the headlights state. Here we are shutting down, detaching, numbing, dissociating, perhaps depressed. You might be mired in shame, and perhaps even preparing for death. Deb Dana tells us that we have a dance between the sympathetic system and the ventral vagal states and the dorsal vagal states, depending upon our circumstances. Our nervous system is constantly and continually listening for our internal and external environmental cues, scanning for cues of safety and scanning for cues of danger. Depending upon our circumstances and our level of resources, we can visit any of these states. If life was always predictable, and we were always exposed to happy, well-adjusted people, and we had continuous internal peace, we might stay in that ventral vagal state. And that's usually what most of us are kind of striving for in our meditation sits. With a dorsal vagal state, however, we are in low energy, and the breath meditation may be helpful. It's more helpful in ventral, and we can practice in ventral breath meditation very easily, but in dorsal vagal, it's a bit tougher, okay? That's when we're in that kind of listless kind of, or sloth and torpor as we know it from our hindrances, we may need something a little bit more arousing. In sympathetic arousal, that's our fight and flight one, we are grasping and craving for something to be different than it is. The Buddha's second noble truth is that suffering is due to clinging and grasping. And the third noble truth is that suffering, for it to end, we need to let go of that clinging and grasping. Breath awareness meditation, particularly with an emphasis on a longer exhalation, may help us to tamp down that excited, agitated state. Okay? But again, here, there may be another anchor that can ground us better. So once we know where we're at and we've set our intention, we can choose from a number of different meditation anchors available to us in the Vipassana tradition. I really needed a whiteboard and a chart because now we have two more divisions, okay? Of the two basic forms of meditation, the first is samatha. That is a Pali word. Pali was the language spoken at the time of the Buddha. And that is a word that means to bring tranquility, mind calmness for focus. So we kind of were doing that tonight. And maybe some of you hit the second form of meditation, vipassana, the Pali word for insight. That is the insight to develop to know what's going on in the moment, so we develop wisdom and compassion. Under this umbrella, there are numerous options for meditation practice. There are 40 meditation subjects that are described in the Visuddhimagga. That is a Buddhist text on the doctrine of the Buddha and also the meditation techniques. And then we also have the Satipatthana Sutta. Okay? That is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which also provides us a myriad of meditation objects. These overlap. So I'm going to start off with the Satipatthana Sutta in brief overview. This is Satipatthana Sutta. It's got multiple books written on it. You can have long retreats. This is Bhikkhu Analayo. He is a scholar on the Satipatthana Sutta. It's the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of body, feelings, mind, and Dhamma, Dhamma being the teachings of the Buddha. And it's called the direct path for the purification of beings. We'll start with mindfulness of body, and we practice that a lot here at IMCC. This would include mindfulness of the breath. We were just practicing that. And that is probably one of our more common practices here at IMCC for anchoring. And the beauty of the breath is that it's free, no equipment needed, okay? For most folks, I shouldn't say this. For some folks, that is equipment needed, okay? It's with us at all times. It brings us a full mind-body experience. It can bring us calming and focus, and can even bring us to insight, and progress us to the jhana states of concentration, as we learned a few weeks ago. Under the mindfulness of the body also falls being aware of our postures. So the Buddha describes sitting, standing, lying, and walking meditations. When we're in ventral vagal state, it might be very easy to have a sit meditation, focusing on the breath or on our sitting posture. But if we're in a dorsal vagal state of being checked out, or we're in the fight and flight state, we might need perhaps standing or even walking to help us to calm or arouse those energies, to bring it a little bit more to the grounding of the feet, and then maybe we can settle down into breath or into sitting posture. The other mindfulness of the body things we can look at are our activities, from waking to sleeping, from brushing our teeth to eating, etc. Being mindful in each moment and really focusing on what's happening now. It is all 32 anatomical body parts are also described. We can focus on anything from our feet, tippy toes, all the way on up to the tips of our hair. We also have mindfulness of feelings in the Satipatthana Sutta. This is not feelings as in emotions. This is an awareness of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral tone in our bodies. It's a much more guttural sense. It's much more intuitive. It's before the brain gets ruminating or thinking about it. Deb Dana talks about neuroception, and she says that this is the nervous system detection and activation prior to any perceptions where we have thought. Where we have thought, that's cognitive, and it's flavored by our experiences and tainted by our conditioning and our beliefs. So picking up on pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral is much more akin to the nervous system detecting what's going on before the brain gets figuring it all out. It's knowing whether we are drawn towards something or are we looking to pull away from a most instinctual space. Next, we have mindfulness of the mind. This is looking at, during our meditation, are we filled with desire or are we free from desire? Are we filled with aversion or are we free from aversion? Are we in delusion or are we free of delusion, seeing clearly? And now mindfulness of the Dhamma is number 4. And as described by Bhikkhu Analayo, these would be the hindrances and the 7 factors of awakening. The hindrances we might meet during our meditation, we might want to pick up and notice them as difficulties that keep us from achieving that focus and that concentration. The first is desire, which is wanting something to be other than it is. And we also have aversion that can show up. Aversion is not wanting what is to not be. Now that's a bunch of double negatives there, okay? So with aversion, we got something and we don't want it, okay? Sloth and torpor. That's a little bit more like that dorsal vagal sense where we're kind of listless and laying back and checking out. Here, if we see that, we might want to rouse ourselves a little bit by maybe standing up if we're sitting, or opening our eyes a little bit for soft downward gaze, or maybe making our breath a little deeper on the inhalation. Next is restlessness and worry. That's more of a sympathetic state. Okay. Here, what we might want to do is to lengthen our exhalations, focus on that exhalation coming out, and notice what we might be clinging to. So we can notice that in our meditation. And the 5th of the hindrances is doubt. Doubt is the lack of belief that this practice will even work. So we need some investigation. We need to sit with that doubt, really see it, and focus on that doubt, and try it out, and see if what you thought is true. Try it, you'll like it. Bhikkhu Analayo has a wonderful 40-minute meditation on YouTube. I think many of us are in DSPP. I mean, what a wonderful experience that is. I got a couple of giggles out of it, which I probably wasn't supposed to, but I did. And it's on YouTube, and it's called Exploring the 4 Satipatthanas. I think it's a great experience. If you have 40 minutes sometime and you'd like to explore this, I would highly encourage it. Yeah, we got those 40 meditation subjects, and we don't have 40 minutes to talk about this, okay? So with this, I'm just going to touch on a few because there's a lot of overlap. One of the other things that we can focus on a meditation are the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, and air. Earth, we are of the earth, our mass, our matter. We can focus on heartbeat, blood, pulse, mucous membranes. We can focus on fire, which is the temperature we feel within, or the lack of temperature, okay? Air, our breathing, noticing even the air on our skin. Maybe we look at colors, we can focus on colors. We can also, if so desired, we can look at the 10 stages of decomposition of a corpse. I won't go into any detail on that tonight. That could be another fun lecture. We also have the 10 recollections. Of these 10, 3 I really want to bring up. It's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, the enlightened one. We all are of Buddha nature. We all have the opportunity to reach this sense of ventral vagal state and maintain. Dhamma, that is the teachings of the Buddha, or the truth of what is. And Sangha, that's us here, okay? It's a group coming together in shared purpose to develop wisdom and compassion and to reduce suffering. Deb Dana stresses that we need each other. We are wired for co-regulation. This doesn't mean we fix someone else's problems. But when we are practicing in a ventral vagal state in a calm way, because we've practiced this at home and practiced this here, etc., we become better at it, okay? When we have that, and another person is in our presence that might not be in ventral vagal, they can benefit from our state without us having to do anything but sit there and continue our practice and our mindfulness. And being grounded, so we and ourselves and others know we are safe. We are safe here. We are connected. We become a gift to others without saying a word, just sitting in practice. By nature, our practice is compassion and loving kindness, which brings us to the 4 Brahma Viharas. Briefly, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, that's joy for another's well-being, and equanimity. We can meditate on each of these. Metta-loving kindness for ourselves and others brings us in touch with our humanity and promotes harmony. Debbie informed us that metta can take us from where we are right now all the way through the jhanas to enlightenment. She told us it'll take us all the way. Isn't that what you said? Yeah, okay. We can also meditate on boundless consciousness, boundless space, and nothingness. Just be, just noticing our being. Lastly, open or choiceless awareness. Moment-to-moment awareness of our experience through our 6 senses, the 6th sense being our mind, as the Buddha has described, thought. We become an impartial observer to the internal and external sensations of our environment, perhaps noting and labeling experiences as they arise in our consciousness to help bring us into focus, particularly when we are newer to meditation. But as we get more practiced, try to let go of that noting and labeling and try to be with knowing without the label, without the note. As Kathleen Dowling Singh from the book Unbinding tells us, we want to move on to total presence without needing to name in order to not disturb the full reality of an experience, to know letting go of form, inviting freedom from beliefs. Our thoughts are already conditioned by karmic formations, and when we name, we only know a mental image. It takes us away from total presence. She quotes a Korean mystic poet, Ukugang Grosjean. Taking a walk, I saw a wildflower. Not knowing its name, I saw its beauty only. There's a story of a wise monk, and I apologize, I can't remember the resource of this story, but a student asks the wise monk, if there is one truth, Why do you tell one student to do one thing and tell another student to do the opposite or something different? The monk answered, if the student is walking on the road with the gully on the left, I tell him to go to the right. If the student is walking with the gully to the right, I tell him to go to the left. As we know from the Buddhist teachings, nothing's permanent. Bhante Gunaratana, abbot of the Bhavana Society, says, who you are is constant flow of changing moments of the mind. Some days I'm energy and enthusiasm. Other days I'm knocked out and listless. Some days I feel clear and sharp. Other days I'm just numb. Sometimes I'm anxious like I'm going to jump out of my skin. And other days I'm grounded and balanced and serene. There are days when meditation anchored on the breath is a perfect fit for developing concentration. But other days, I like using walking meditation, open awareness, or attending to my hindrances to get a better development of mindfulness and concentration. So what are your circumstances and conditions? When you come to a sit, notice if you have a gully to the right or if you have a gully to the left, and choose your meditation anchor accordingly. With right view and intention, you can choose the meditation form to meet you right where you're at.